Guys, I would like to introduce you to
Oh my
the
gosh.
very violent new So Cultured podcast mascot. She's just playing. I swear, she actually loves me. She loves me so much, but she is actually just attacking me this morning.
She
Um,
is a cray-cray.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to put her in her basket for the rest of this episode because she's so naughty and she just attacks everything 24/7. Like, I forgot how chaotic kittens are. Like, she just
Yeah.
causes chaos all day. Like, I can't focus on anything because she's just chewing up a wire. Then I'm like, oh my God, she's going to be electrocuted. Then the next thing, she's like knocking candles off the side. Then she's like running into my keyboard display. It's just absolute
Oh.
chaos in my office right now.
But she's come so far. I remember when you first got her, she was like too scared to come out of her crate. And now look at her.
Oh my God, you guys, she literally did not come out of her crate for, what was it, like 2.5 days? She did not
Mm.
move an inch. She didn't go to the bathroom. She didn't eat. She didn't do anything. Like, I was trying so hard of her, but also I didn't want to rush her. I just wanted her to do things at her own pace.
Mm.
And yeah, now look at her. She's just beating me up and just demanding things from me 24/7.
You're going to get
Cats
bitten
are,
in a minute.
yeah, cats are so scary. Like, they're actually scary.
She cray-cray. I have a love-hate relationship with cats for this pure reason.
Yeah, they do. They
They're
are
so
pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie.
unpredictable.
They are. And I'm not just being like horrible, but I'm not letting her go because if I let her go, she's gonna run at the podcast setup and she's gonna destroy it all and this episode will be done. But anyway, she actually doesn't have a name yet. It's either Winnie or Wilma. This is her. We're ending this intro because I need to go and put her in her crate. So let's get on with episode 7 of
Bye.
Overlooked. Say goodbye to Winnie/Wilma. She's so
Bye,
cute.
Winnie/Wilma. She's really not tech friendly.
Oh.
Or live friendly for that matter.
Ouch. Okay, let's get into this week's episode of Overlooked. Welcome to the So Cultured podcast,
where we explore science and tech unfiltered.
We're your hosts, Liv and Taz, two girls who love STEM and spilling the tea.
Each season, we take on a new theme, whether it's busting conspiracy theories, celebrating women in STEM, or breaking down the science in your favourite sci-fi films.
And of course, in every episode, we spill the laboraTEAAA,
where we share your wildest stories from the world of science.
Let's get into this week's episode of So Cultured.
You've probably heard of Alan Turing, the mathematical genius who cracked the Nazi Enigma code and helped end World War II. He is the war hero, the pioneer of modern computing, and the face of genius under real pressure. But what if I told you he didn't do it alone? Behind the war rooms and the machines, there was someone else. A woman armed not with weapons, but with numbers, logic, and relentless precision. She also didn't seek the spotlight, but her mind helped alter the course of history. And her name? Joan Clarke. She cracked the codes the Nazis swore were unbreakable, and she rose through the ranks in a man's world by sheer force of intellect, and she did it all while most people thought women couldn't even do mathematics. This is not just a story of war and secrets, it's the story of a woman who beat the odds with nothing but her brain and changed the world without ever asking for credit. This is the untold story of Joan Clarke, the woman who helped break the Enigma.
Oh my gosh, I've definitely heard of Alan Turing, and I feel like most people who have studied bioinformatics, computer science, or anything like that have definitely heard of him. And in fact, I think we even did an episode on him where we spoke about some of the things that he's done. So this is really interesting because I did the research, obviously, for that episode, and I am really disappointed to say that I have not heard about her. I don't know anything about her. So this is going to be interesting and eye-opening for me. So as always, let's start at the beginning. Taz, tell us about Joan Clarke, who she was, where she was from, all of that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I've heard of Alan Turing, and I feel like he was kind of also unknown for many, many years, not just because of his sexuality, but because of the secretive nature of what they were doing, essentially. So yeah, I also find it like disheartening that we know his name, but we don't know Jones. So let's delve into that. Let's look at who Joan is. She was born on the 24th of June 1970 in West Norwood, London, and she was the youngest of 5 children to Dorothy and Reverend William Clarke. She had 3 older brothers and 1 sister, growing up in a household that valued education and integrity. She attended Dulwich High School for Girls, where it soon became apparent that she was exceptionally clever, and in fact, in 1936, Joan won a scholarship to Newnham College, Cambridge, which I think we've actually spoken about on this podcast for a few other members of this season, but actually it makes sense because it was one of the only colleges for women at the time. So it makes sense that a lot of these really pioneering women were at this college, but I just thought that was quite interesting. So at Cambridge, Joan was introduced to higher mathematics and quickly caught the attention of her supervisor, Gordon Welchman, a mathematician who would later change the course of her life. Now, Joan graduated with a double first in mathematics, which basically just means that she achieved a first-class honours in 2 parts of her degree, and she was also known as a Wrangler, which was basically a distinction given to the top students in Cambridge's notoriously difficult mathematics exams. So she was top of her class. She also won the Philippa Fawcett Prize and the Helen Gladstone Scholarship in 1939, but despite all this, she couldn't actually be awarded a full degree simply because she was a woman, and Cambridge didn't grant full degrees to women until 1948.
Oh my God, I did not know that. That's insane. I'm surprised that we haven't heard about that actually on this podcast already, but I did not know that about Cambridge, especially considering, like you said, how many times we've heard about this particular college. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But I guess it clearly didn't deter her. And obviously she was very intelligent. I can't even imagine getting a double first. That's impressive. Yeah. So what did she do, or where did she go after university? Also, can I just say, I think it's crazy that they go to university knowing that they're not going to actually be awarded a degree.
I know.
Not for me, but I mean, it just goes to show how passionate they are about, or she was about what she was doing and what she was studying, which I think is so nice.
Yeah, I just think it's mind-blowing. I really would wonder what goes through their minds knowing that they're basically as good, if not better, than their male counterparts at their degree, but they're not awarded the degree at the end of it. Surely that's infuriating. I feel 100%. This whole season, I've really wanted to almost be able to time travel and just be in and about in that era, because I feel a lot of the time we follow their life along, and I'm I really wish I just knew what it was like back then.
100%. And I want to go back and be babe, I promise one day you're going to get the recognition that you deserve.
I know.
I just want them to know that. So sad.
Yeah. But back to Joan Clarke. So after university, her supervisor, Gordon Welchman, who I previously just mentioned, recruited her and a few other top minds into a secret organisation called the Government Code and Cipher School, or GC and CS for short, at Bletchley Park. So the GC and CS was an organisation formed secretly in 1939, and their mission was to crack the German Enigma code.
God, Bletchley Park, Enigma code. I'm just remembering all of this. But for any of our listeners who didn't tune into that episode, can you just quickly explain what is the Enigma code and what was this kind of project all about?
Yeah, so the Germans developed Enigma machines to encrypt messages so that the Allies couldn't interpret their communications when they were intercepted. So these machines essentially scrambled the alphabet into ciphertext, and the message could only be decrypted using the exact same machine settings, which were basically changed daily. So that's what made it so hard to decipher them. And there were basically billions of possible combinations. And most people on both sides believed the code to be unbreakable. But the GC and CS was determined to try. So quick note, one of the biggest reasons they needed to break the Enigma code was because the Germans were using it to coordinate what was called wolf packs. So these were groups of U-boats that attacked Allied convoys and destroyed vital vital supplies in the war. So that's kind of like an overview of what the Enigma code is and why they used it. So if we go back to Joan, in June 1940, Welchman, her supervisor, reached out to her with an enticing but vague offer. He said, "Would you like to do something interesting?" And she obviously said yes. So Joan arrived at Bletchley Park on the 17th of June 1940, originally assigned to the all-women section known as the Girls, and these women primarily handled clerical work, and this was what she was initially signed up to do. But obviously Joan wasn't made for clerical work, so she was soon moved to the codebreaker team, in her own words, because of her degree. So she was reassigned to HUT-8, which was the Centre of Naval Codebreaking, working alongside Alan Turing, whom she knew through her brother. And here, Joan became the only female practitioner of banburismus, which was basically the technique that Alan Turing had developed to decipher the Enigma encrypted messages. And this method reduced reliance on the bomb, which was the big electromechanical machine used to crack the code. So if you've seen the film Imitation Game, you'll obviously know what I'm talking about, but it's just basically a massive machine with like turning cogs that they use to try and decipher the Enigma. But obviously Alan Turing created his own method, but obviously I won't ruin the film for you. But yeah, so at the time women still weren't paid anywhere near the same as men, so she was given a linguist grade to qualify for a higher salary, even though she didn't speak another language. And she once said that she enjoyed answering a questionnaire with grade linguist, languages none. So that was basically the only option that was available to her to increase her wage. There was another option to increase her salary, which was for her to join the Women's Royal Navy service, but she declined.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. And I'm so intrigued as to whether her like male colleagues were trying to encourage her to get a pay rise, like if they wanted her to get a pay rise, and that's why they were saying like maybe you should join the Navy. And then she was like, no. Or if I don't know, I'm just if that was like the only way that she would ever get a pay raise, but it would mean technically doing a different job. I don't know. That's so interesting. But what kind of like was the impact of her work specifically, or like what did she contribute specifically? Because as we mentioned, we spoke about Alan Turing and his contributions, but I guess like how did she help or have any kind of impact?
Yeah, so she was essentially also responsible for decoding these Enigma messages like every day once they figured out how to decode them. So that was basically her job every day. So the Navy ciphers decoded by Joan and her colleagues were actually much harder to break than the other German messages, and they largely related to the U-boats that were hunting down the Allied ships that were carrying troops and supplies from the US to Europe. So her task was to break these ciphers in real time. So it was one of the most high pressure jobs at Bletchley Park, and the messages Clarke decoded would essentially result in some military action being taken almost immediately. So U-boats that were kind of hunting down the Allied ships would then either be sunk or circumnavigated, saving thousands of lives. So you've got the troops' lives that were saved, but also it essentially helped them win the war. So you could, in a sense, say that the war ended a lot sooner than it would have done because they figured out the coded messages. So between March and June 1941, German U-boats were sinking an average of 282,000 tons of Allied ships and their contents per month. And by November, after the key breakthroughs by Joan and her team, that number had dropped to 62,000 tons. So Joan's work was crucial in this effort. She was described by Hugh Alexander, head of HUT-8 from 1943 to 1944, as one of the best banburists. And even among the brilliant minds of Bletchley Park, she obviously stood out. So when the Germans introduced a new four-rotor Enigma machine in 1942, things looked grim. The Allies struggled, but Joan, examining intercepted code sheets, realized that the fourth rotor used the same cipher as the earlier three-rotor system. So this breakthrough helped Sean Wiley crack the code. And over 1 million German naval messages would eventually be decrypted by HUT-8. And in the lead up to D-Day, Joan and her colleagues decoded German German weather systems, helping the Allies time bombing raids and prepare for the Normandy landings. So their work also supported covert operations by the Special Operations Executive. And in 1944, Joan was promoted to deputy head of HIS-tory, but obviously, despite her seniority, she was still paid a lot less than her male peers. But obviously, because of the secrecy that kind of still surrounds events at Bletchley Park, the full extent of Joan's achievements remains and probably will remain unknown.
That's insane, isn't it? That they still haven't like properly or like fully released all of the details of everything that they did. Like, I just think that's, I don't know, like why are they still keeping it a secret? I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, tell us. I want to know. It's interesting, especially considering like they've made films about it, they've made documentaries about it. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that they've still kept it all secret. Maybe they're still using some of the techniques today. That's all I can think as to why they're not releasing all of the details. Interesting. But
Yeah.
given everything that you just said, obviously the work that she did and her team did had such a huge impact on the war and just on people's lives in general. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And speaking of secrecy, like, I do not know if Alan Turing was openly gay during this time, but obviously we now know that about him. And it always, well, this is kind of just making me think, did Joan and Alan perhaps like have a particularly special bond because maybe they kind of like bonded over the fact that they felt quite different to their cis straight male counterparts at all?
Yeah, no, they absolutely did. Like, it's been kind of recorded that they did form quite a deep bond, and they even arranged their shifts to work together and spent their days off in each other's company, and they shared each other's passions such as chess, puzzles, botany, and even on occasion knitting. And in 1941, Alan Turing actually proposed to Joan, and Joan accepted. And she said herself, "We did do some things together, we went to the cinema and so on, but certainly it was a surprise to me when he said, 'Would you consider marrying me?' But although it was a surprise, I really didn't hesitate in saying yes, and then he knelt by my chair and kissed me. The next day we went for a little bit of a walk together, and that's when he told me he had this homosexual tendency. And naturally, that worried me a bit, but we carried on." Now, back then, marriage didn't have to reflect sexual desire. It was obviously expected of women, and for gay men, it was often a cover as well. But still, Alan Turing eventually called off the engagement because he was worried it would lead to an unhappy life for them both, but they remained close friends until his death in 1954.
Wow, that was a plot twist I was not expecting.
I know.
Like, I'm surprised that we, number one, have not heard about Joan, and then number two, have not heard about like this fleeting romance. Like, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And then he ended up calling it off. Also, I didn't know that he passed away that early on after the war either. Clearly, I know nothing about this whole situation.
Have you seen Imitation Game or not?
No, we spoke about this on the last episode. You were like, I need to watch it, but I still haven't watched it. Oh, I know. I say this all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch it. And then we all know I'm not going to. As we've discovered on this podcast, I am rubbish at watching films, TV series. I never get any references. I'm sorry.
Not good enough, babe.
So I want to say I'm going to watch it, but we all know I'm probably not going to. So you're going to have to fill me in on what happened with Joan after this fleeting romance and then him unfortunately passing away. Like, what did she do after the war?
Yeah, so when the war ended in 1945, the operations at Bletchley Park were disbanded and most records were destroyed. And if you know Alan Turing's story, you'd know that the work remained top secret under the Official Secrets Act. However, Joan received an MBE, which is a member of the Order of the British Empire, in 1946 for her wartime service, and she went on to work for GCHQ, the post-war kind of successor of Bletchley Park's code-breaking hub. And it was there that she met Lieutenant Colonel John Kenneth Ronald Murray, a retired army officer. They married on the 26th of July in 1952 in Chichester Cathedral, where her father was a canon. Fuck, that means. And after a short stint in Scotland, Joan worked at GCHQ until her retirement in 1977 at the age of 60.
Okay, I must admit, I love that she got an MBE and had some sort of recognition during her career, I guess. But overall, I feel like she had quite a quiet, although it was like impactful, she had quite a quiet life. And obviously, we spoke about her just not being very well known in general as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously that was the nature of her work. Obviously, due to the secrecy surrounding her work, we might never fully understand the extent of what she did. But I think it's just the difference between like knowing about Alan Turing, but not necessarily knowing about Joan Clarke. But Joan Clarke, she actually passed away on the 4th of September in 1996 in Oxfordshire, aged 79. But her recognition has grown over time. So I think most notably she was portrayed by Keira Knightley in The Imitation Game, the film that I mentioned, alongside Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Alan Turing. Although some people criticised the film's romantic emphasis between Turing and Clarke, others argued that her story has now obviously been immortalized. But ultimately, I think that led to more recognition then, because in 2019, a blue plaque was unveiled at her home in Oxfordshire, and in 2024, another was placed at her childhood home in West Dulwich in London.
That's so nice. I was just thinking though, as you were talking, do you think if they hadn't had this romance that we would know about her today? Do you think?
Yeah,
And I
don't
wonder if that's why
know.
some people criticised the film and criticised their emphasis on the romance part, kind of saying like, why are we focusing on that when they did all of these amazing things? But it does make me think, I think we spoke before about, in the Hedy Lamarr episode, about pretty privilege and whether we would actually know about Hedy Lamarr if she wasn't so beautiful and like this gorgeous actress who, you know, everybody was like infatuated with. And we're
Yeah.
not saying that she only deserves the credit because she's pretty. I'm just wondering if like that's a societal thing and that's how we know about people like Hedy Lamarr, and then also maybe the romance with Alan Turing is how we know about Joan Clarke. I don't know. I just think that's an interesting thing to think about.
It could be the case, to be honest, because obviously Alan Turing was the big name, so that would make sense. But as I said, she never really sought out kind of any like credit or like claim to fame for the work that she did. Obviously, her work was secretive, so she never really sought that out. So her story is kind of like a powerful reminder that brilliance doesn't always come with like glory. And obviously she worked in complete secrecy, but obviously now her legacy shines through. So she was a pioneer in mathematics, cryptanalysis, and historical research. She was essentially a war hero without all the medals and a genius without all the fame. And she was a woman who helped turn the tide of the deadliest conflict in history without ever asking for recognition. So next time you hear about Alan Turing and the Enigma machine, remember there was a woman in Hut 8 running her calculations, questioning the data and breaking the code, and her name was Joan Clarke, and she was largely overlooked but had immeasurable impacts on the war effort.
Oh my God, thank you for that, Taz. That was so interesting. And I'm so embarrassed that I have done so much research on Alan Turing. I've learned so much about him and I've never heard of Joan Clarke. But what an amazing story. And yeah, so interesting to hear about her. But for now, it's time to get into our laboratory section of today's episode. And we are revisiting our What Would You Do If? You guys have submitted some questions for us to answer. So let's get into it. Do you know what is wild, Taz? Before Jenny, I used to think struggling for hours over papers was literally just part of like the PhD or academic experience.
Yeah, literally, like suffering was somehow a requirement, but it really doesn't have to be. So Jenny feels like basically having an all-in-one writing buddy.
Exactly. First, it helps you start. So you put in your topic and Jenny suggests an outline with all of the headings that you might need, and it will suggest sentences for you using real citations. So you don't get stuck just kind of like staring at the cursor. And that feature alone makes writing so much less intimidating.
Yes, and you mentioned citations. Normally, they're like among the worst part, time consuming, confusing, hard to format, and easy to mess up. But Jenny handles them automatically. Upload your sources or let Jenny find them for you, and everything gets formatted in the right style with a reference list that builds as you go. Just specify your reference style and off you go.
And when you're drowning in background reading, Jenny's AI summarization tool saves you. Instead of spending hours digging through articles, it highlights the key points so you can focus on what actually matters.
So from blank page to final bibliography, Jenny has your back. It takes away the formatting issues and the writer's block and leaves you with the thinking and the writing that actually counts.
Yeah, so if you're a student, a researcher, or anyone who writes a lot, you need to check it out.
Sign up for Jenny today and don't forget to use the code SEP20 for 20% off your subscription. You can find all the info in our description.
Yeah, and with that, let's get back into today's episode.
But I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. So give me your
Okay, our first what would you do if is so dad coded. It says, what would you do if your PI sent you a thumbs up emoji after you told them that you need time off because you're having a breakdown?
I don't know if I would do anything. I'd just be like, cool, see ya.
I'd take that as a yes, like, yeah, fine, cool, I'm having the time off.
No, literally. Also, so true about dad coded because it gives off like the PI just doesn't want to get involved. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever, mate. Just
100%. I mean, that is just like how professors talk in general. Like my supervisor, he doesn't even write any text in the body of the email. He just puts what he wants to say in the subject of the email. So the subject of the email will be like, meet in my office in 5, and then there's nothing in the body of the email. That's literally just it. So I feel like if I messaged my supervisor and was like, I need time off, I'm having a breakdown, I would just get like a thumbs up. Yeah, and it would be in the subject. Like the subject would just be like thumbs up.
Oh my gosh. I think my supervisor would do the exact same thing. He'd be like, okay. I just think it's pretty standard for like supervisors to be like that, to be fair. So I would just take that as a sure, go ahead, and I'll just book my leave.
I mean, I've had some supervisors who would definitely call me in for a meeting, sit me down, and like really try and coach me through life, to be honest. So I feel like I've had both. Yeah, I've definitely had like both sides of the coin. I think it depends. Every supervisor I've ever had has been a male. If you've had like a female supervisor, I feel like typically they are better at dealing with like your emotions as a person, as an employee in general. But yeah, all of my supervisors have been male, but I've definitely have some who have been better than others at dealing with things like that.
If I got that email as a supervisor, I'd be like, are you okay? Like, is there anything that you're stressing over? Take time if you need it, 100% kind of thing. Yeah, not just a thumbs up, because that is a bit deep. But that is a bit savage. Pretty normal, I'd say.
So what would you do? I would just be like, cool, and I'd book my leave. See you then.
Yeah.
Take that as a yes. Thumbs up. Cool.
Yeah.
You guys will have to let us know, would you be happy with that response, or would that just really piss you off? Let us know in the comments. You can reply to all of these what would you do if in the comments of today's episode, because we want to know what would you do to all of these. And with that, let's move on to our next one. It says, what would you do if your colleague kept stealing your lunch from the communal fridge? That's such petty behavior. Imagine that would piss me off so much. That would like, don't play with me when it comes to my food. Like that would annoy the hell out of me.
Also, if I've put the effort in to bring lunch from home,
exactly,
I'm sorry, nah, that is just like what? Who even does that? I'm like lost.
It's so much effort, and sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I will make the lunch to bring, but for some reason, like bringing it to work, why is that so much effort? It just feels like unnecessary lifting into work. I mean, I don't know how heavy my lunch is. It takes up unnecessary space in my bag. Finding a fork. I always leave the fucking fork at work, the fork. And then I come home and I've got no forks. So it's just so much effort. Like I don't know why bringing your lunch to work is so much effort. So yeah, if I went to the effort to bring it in and then someone took it, I'd be pissed. Also, imagine, or it also depends what it is. Like imagine you've got like leftover Dominoes. Someone's sending you leftover Dominoes. Now that would infuriate me. That would
drive me. Well, also, you'd be dealing with the wrath of hangry me. And trust me, you do not want to experience that, because Kieran can tell you, it's not a pretty sight. So if someone was stealing my lunch, oh my God, what would you do if you didn't know who it was though? Like I'd go absolutely ape.
Like every single day it's going, every single day. I think I would, oh my God, this is giving like, oh, I mean, we've had several laboratory stories where we've been like, you need to get a camera, but this is another one. You need to get a camera in the common room or like have someone in there
Yeah.
like spying, looking for you. Because do they know it's your lunch? Do you know what I mean? That's another question is like,
Yeah.
do they specifically know it's yours? Because if they're taking the same one every single day, I think they're trolling you and they know that it's yours. They must do.
They must do, and but also it's like that is literal stealing as well. That's like stealing food is equivalent to stealing money, in my opinion, because
I agree.
food shopping these days is so expensive.
So
So,
expensive. Don't even talk to me about it. Don't even.
so what would you do, Liv? You'd get a camera.
Yeah, because I'd have to figure out who it was and then I'd have to confront them. 100%, as you say, this isn't cheap. I'd have
Yeah,
confront them. And I'm sorry, but you're personally targeting me if you're taking mine every single day. I
yeah.
mean, why?
Maybe
I
they
mean,
just
unless you
think
have
that
some
you're a
really great
good cook.
lunches.
Yeah.
Take it as a compliment.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I would
okay.
go mad. I would have to do the same. I think I would even report it. I'd send emails round, like blanket emails, like whoever's stealing people's lunches every day, get a fucking life. Can you tell I'm passionate about this?
But then surely at some point you'd just stop putting it in the, like after day 3, I would have stopped putting it in the communal fridge anyway.
No, I agree. Like you would just stop. But also it's just like I want my food to be refrigerated, you know?
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true because you don't want like warm leftover Dominoes. It's got to be like from the fridge.
Mm.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, because I normally will bring, yeah, stuff that needs to go in the fridge. What doesn't need to go in the fridge?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. Maybe a sandwich, I guess. Probably doesn't really need to
You
go in the
got to
fridge.
invest in a cool box, I say.
Cool box underneath your desk.
Yeah, underneath your
Honestly,
lab
anything to make it
bench.
stop. I would send
Imagine.
blanket emails. I would seek out who it was through cameras. I would report it to higher
Camera.
management. I would get my own cool box under my desk, like everything.
We don't play. We do not play when it comes to our food. That is funny. The next, what would you do if, is actually one that I want to ask you, Tads, because I know
Oh
the answer to it, but it's
gosh.
something that I have actually experienced before. And it was just so awkward that I just did not know what to do. So I'm like
Oh.
curious as to what you would do. And then the listeners are going to have to let me know on this one as well. So I'm going to tell you the
Hmm.
situation. So one time I was asked to review a paper and it was for quite a like prestigious journal.
Yeah.
And in bioinformatics, we normally have to submit our code as like part of our like paper. So we have to submit like a GitHub repo where all of our code is stored. So if reviewers want to go through your code, they can. Anyway, so was reviewing the paper and there was one part in their methods where I was like, I don't understand like what they've done. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go and look at the code and see for myself like how they've actually done this, what they've done, etc. Anyway, so I go to the code, and then for anyone who doesn't write code, we typically have to comment our code. So what that means is we will basically just kind of write little notes in our code that is explaining what we're doing, or maybe like what a particular variable contains and all of that jazz. And sometimes you do just write little notes to yourself, like maybe you'll write hashtag
Oh my
clean this
gosh.
up
Yeah.
later or hashtag whatever. Anyway, so I was going through this code and the amount of unhinged code comments submitted to this journal that was live on GitHub was insane. So I kept like just reading things like it was so fucking relatable, to be fair, because there was comments and it was like all in capitals, like, oh my fucking god, I can't believe I finally got this shit to work. And it was like, then there'd be like another code comment later like, this shit. Like honestly, I swear on my life, I swear on my twin sister's life, it was full of co-comments like this. And I was like, oh my god, what do I do? Do I tell them? Because otherwise, like I'm just one of 3 reviewers. I could tell them now, it could be fixed, and then nobody else gets to see it. Or number 2, do I just leave it? Because I was guessing that this was like a first year PhD student based off of the code comments, because no
Oh
postdoc is
gosh.
leaving, oh my fucking god, I can't believe I finally got this to work in their code comments. So I'm thinking this is definitely a first year PhD student, or like, well, maybe not first year, but anyway. And then I was like, oh my god, their PI is going to get the email from the editor if I tell the editor that's going to be like, you need to go and fix the comments. Then he's going to go and look at them. Then he's going to go and talk to his student, and it's all going to be awkward. Do I email the student directly? Like, what do I do? But then they would know who I was. They would know that I was a reviewer. It was a whole situation. So I'm just so curious, like, what would you have done if you were me?
Oh my gosh.
Like, when I tell
so
you it was
hard.
there were so many, and like so many swear words. It was like unreal. I was like, oh my God, this is bad.
Well, I feel like it's got to be a learning moment, right?
Yep.
Like, as harsh as that
Okay.
sounds.
Yep.
So I think if I had the guts to do it and I was in your position, I would send an email to the editor to say, can you just get in contact with
Yeah.
the authors of this? Just because I think they probably need to tidy up their comments, because I think they've submitted it thinking that we couldn't see their comments, or like, I don't know, alluding to the fact that they didn't know that their comments were going to be seen by the reviewers.
So you would email okay, interesting. Should I tell you what I did?
Yeah.
So I just included it as part of my review. Like, in my review, I was just like, you need to go through your comments, but hear me out, because obviously the student is going to be the one who reads through these comments, like, with a fine toothpick. Toothpick. What's the saying? Tooth comb. Tooth comb. The editor is probably just going to gloss over them and just think that they just need to, in general, clear up their comments. So I'm not embarrassing them in front of the editor. And then the PI is probably just going to do the same thing. He's probably just going to be like, oh yeah, you need to just fix up your code comments. But then the actual student would go back on them and be like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing.
Yeah, that is a really good point, actually.
That is what I did. I did tell my supervisor as well. I was like, what should I do in this situation? And he was like, yeah, just write it as part of your review. So that's what I did. So awkward.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is so awkward. But that is very true about like getting around the editor seeing it and like the PI seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's better than my suggestion, to be fair.
So
but imagine being that student.
Check your code comments. Yeah.
Oh,
I know. Check your code comments, guys, because you never know what's lurking in there. And now whenever I submit something, I'm always like going through them.
There is like in one of my friends' PhD, who I did my PhD like alongside, in their thesis, somewhere is written like, I'm fucking finished, because he wrote it and then forgot to delete it before he printed it off.
Oh my God. How did they not spot that as well? Like, surely you think they would have some kind of system that catches these things? Oh my God, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That is embarrassing.
I think we've all been there with like silly comments though. I don't know, I feel like I've definitely written on documents or things like that, or like physically written things like, I'm fucking done.
I 100% have even done it like in my code and like things like that, and then I've just removed them later on. But now I just know to just not do it.
Yeah. It's not worth it. Well, thanks for bringing those what would you do if questions to us, Liv. And that actually forms the last what would you do if section for this season. So if you missed out, I'm sure there'll always be another opportunity to get involved with like our little segment. But also we do laboraTEAAA submissions from you guys. So always leave an anonymous link in the description for you to send us your academia stories or work stories, and you just want to share the tea or get some advice, then let us know. But that rounds off episode 9 of Overlooked. Obviously, if you're enjoying the season, please don't forget to give us a like or follow or subscribe or a comment. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we love to see that people are liking the season. But for now, we will see you guys in next week's episode. Bye, everyone.